The Great Hall felt bigger than Harry ever imagined. The ceiling shimmered like a living night sky, full of stars that didn't belong to the real world. Hundreds of candles floated above, dripping wax that never fell. Every sound felt louder to Harry: the scrape of benches, nervous whispers, his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He stood at the edge of the hall with the other first-years, gripping the rough fabric of his oversized robes. Wishing he could disappear into them, Professor McGonagall called names one by one. Each student walked up, sat on the stool, and waited as the old patched hat decided their future. Gryffindor cheers were loud and proud. Ravenclaw claps sounded polite. Hufflepuff welcomed their own warmly. And then there was Slytherin sharp applause, slower, colder, like they were judging who deserved to sit among them. Harry barely heard the names anymore. His mind was busy replaying everything Hagrid had told him. About his parents, about how everyone already seemed to know him. He didn't want to be famous. He didn't want expectations. He just wanted to belong somewhere, and maybe not be hated. Harry Potter. The hall went quiet. Not fully silent, but close enough that Harry felt every eye on him. Whispers rushed through the room like a sudden wind. He walked forward on shaky legs and sat on the stool. Professor McGonagall placed the sorting hat on his head, and the world went dark. Well, now, a soft voice murmured inside his head. "This is interesting," Harry swallowed. "Please," he thought, "not Slytherin." "Plenty of courage, I see," the hat said thoughtfully. "Not a bad mind either. Quick, sharp, always watching. And there's something else. Ambition. Buried deep, but strong. A desire to prove yourself." "I just want friends," Harry whispered in his mind. "I don't want to be evil." Evil. The hat sounded amused. No house owns evil child. Slytherin values ambition, resourcefulness, survival. You've had to survive more than most. Images flashed in Harry's head: Dudley's fists, dark cupboards, long, lonely nights. He clenched his teeth. "Not Slytherin," he begged again. "Are you sure?" The hat pressed. "You could be great there. You could learn how to protect yourself, how to be strong. Gryffindor would praise your bravery. Yes. But Slytherin would sharpen you." Harry hesitated. He didn't want to be alone. He didn't want everyone thinking he was like Voldemort. But deep down, there was a small voice, tired of being weak, tired of being stepped on. "I don't want to be like him," Harry said. "And you won't," the hat replied firmly. "Choices matter more than where you begin." There was a long pause. Then the hat spoke louder, for the whole hall to hear. The word echoed like a dropped plate. For half a second, nobody moved. Then the Slytherin table clapped, some with interest, some with surprise. Draco Malfoy's pale face twisted into a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. At the Gryffindor table, Ron Weasley looked like someone had punched him. Hermione's mouth fell open. Hagrid stared in shock, his huge eyes full of worry. Harry felt sick as he walked to the Slytherin table. Every step felt wrong. He slid onto the bench between a tall, quiet boy with dark hair and a girl who glanced at him like she was measuring his worth. Draco leaned closer. "Looks like you made the right choice, Potter," he said softly. "My father will be pleased." Harry didn't answer. He wasn't sure what the right choice even was anymore. As the feast began, food appeared on the tables, but Harry barely touched it. He felt like a stranger wearing someone else's skin. Conversations buzzed around him: pureblood talk, famous family names, quiet laughter that sounded more like plotting than joy. In the Slytherin common room, the walls were stone and the light was green. Coming from the lake outside, shadows moved like slow ghosts. It was cold, but not uncomfortable, more like a warning. That night, lying in his four-poster bed, Harry stared at the dark ceiling. He wondered if he had just ruined everything before it even began, or if, somehow, this was exactly where he was meant to be. Far above him. In a tower lit by fire and courage, Gryffindor slept without him. And deep under the lake, in the quiet of Slytherin, Harry Potter closed his eyes, unaware that this single moment had already begun to change the wizarding world. The days that followed moved fast, but none of them felt simple. Harry learned quickly that Slytherin was not loud like Gryffindor, or warm like Hufflepuff. It was quiet, sharp, and always watching. People smiled, but their eyes were busy. Every word felt like it carried a second meaning underneath. Draco Malfoy stuck to him like a shadow. He introduced Harry to the rest of their year Crabbe and Goyle, who barely spoke and seemed to exist only to stand behind Draco and Pansy Parkinson, who spoke sweetly but laughed when others were uncomfortable. They all treated Harry like something valuable, not because they liked him, but because of his name. That bothered Harry more than open hatred ever could. In potions class, things became worse. Professor Snape's dark eyes locked onto Harry the moment he entered the dungeon. The air felt heavier there, thick with the smell of damp stone and bitter ingredients. Snape didn't sneer the way Harry had expected. Instead, he watched him closely, like a man studying a cracked mirror. "So," Snape said slowly, pacing in front of the class, "our new celebrity has joined Slytherin." A few students smirked. Draco sat straighter, clearly proud. "Fame is a poor substitute for skill," Snape continued. "Let us see if Mr. Potter has any." Harry's hands shook as he chopped ingredients. He could feel Snape's presence behind him, waiting for a mistake. When his potion turned the wrong shade of green, Snape stopped beside his cauldron. "Careless," Snape said quietly. "Your mother was far more precise." Harry froze. He didn't know why that hurt so much, but it did. Snape moved on without another word, leaving Harry confused and angry at the same time. Not all classes were like that. In defense against the dark arts, Professor Quirrell stuttered and sweated through lessons, barely able to control the class. Harry noticed things others didn't. The way Quirrell avoided mirrors, the way his turban never shifted, the fear in his eyes when magic turned aggressive. Slytherin taught Harry to observe, and he was learning fast. Still, loneliness followed him everywhere. Ron barely looked at him now. Hermione spoke to him politely, but there was distance in her voice. At meals, Harry sat surrounded by people, yet felt completely alone. One evening, he wandered the corridors after curfew, unable to sleep. The castle was different at night, alive, in a quiet way. As he passed a window, he heard voices. "He doesn't belong there," Ron said angrily. "He didn't choose it," Hermione replied, though her voice sounded unsure. "He did," Ron snapped. "The hat listens." Harry stepped back before they could see him. The words hit harder than he expected. For the first time, he wondered if the hat had been right. If he really had chosen this dot, Christmas came closer, and tension rose. Then the news spread someone had tried to break into a guarded corridor on the 3rd floor. The teachers were nervous. Snape was furious, and Slytherin students whispered excitedly. Draco cornered Harry near the common room. "They say something powerful is hidden at Hogwarts," he said, eyes bright. "Something worth killing for." Harry felt a chill. That night, he dreamed of fire, of a cold voice laughing, of a door slowly opening dot, and when he awoke, his scar burned. Harry didn't know it yet, but Slytherin wasn't just shaping how others saw him. It was shaping who he was, becoming careful, guarded, and slowly learning that sometimes being good wasn't enough to survive. Winter settled over Hogwarts like a heavy blanket, turning the grounds white and the lake outside the Slytherin common room into a dark sheet of ice. Harry spent more time alone now, either in the library or walking the quiet halls where no one asked him questions he didn't know how to answer. Being in Slytherin taught him silence. It taught him how to listen without reacting, how to hide what he felt behind a calm face. He noticed things others missed, like how Snape always seemed to appear near the 3rd floor corridor, how Filch grew jumpy whenever students mentioned it, how Quirrell smelled strongly of garlic but flinched whenever Snape was near. Pieces didn't make sense yet, but Harry felt them slowly locking together in his mind. One night, Draco bragged loudly in the common room about how his father suspected Dumbledore was hiding something valuable at the school. "Old fool thinks no one notices," Draco said, laughing, "but Slytherins always notice." Harry didn't laugh. His scar tingled faintly like a warning. During a late study session in the library, Hermione approached him. She hesitated before sitting down across from him, like she expected him to bite. "I found something," she whispered, sliding a book toward him. "About Nicholas Flamel." Harry's heart skipped. "Why are you telling me this?" Hermione sighed. "Because whether you're in Slytherin or not, you're still you." That was the closest thing to kindness he'd heard in weeks. They talked quietly, connecting the pieces. The guarded corridor, Flamel, something called the Philosopher's Stone. Power, immortality, and danger. Harry didn't tell Draco. That choice alone changed everything. On Christmas morning, Harry stayed at Hogwarts. He received fewer gifts than he expected, but one stood out: a silvery cloak folded neatly with a note. Use it wisely. The invisibility cloak wrapped around him like a secret. That night, curiosity pulled him toward the restricted section of the library. Hidden beneath the cloak, Harry felt untouchable, powerful, until he found the mirror. It stood alone, tall and golden. When Harry looked into it, he saw his parents smiling at him, standing close, proud. His chest tightened. This wasn't ambition. This was longing. For several nights he returned. Each time, the mirror gave him comfort. Slytherin never had. But Dumbledore found him there one evening. The happiest man alive would see himself exactly as he is. Dumbledore said gently, "Remember that?" Harry nodded, though he didn't fully understand. The trapdoor was breached days later. Harry overheard Snape arguing with Quirrell, his voice sharp with accusation. Everything snapped into focus. Snape wasn't protecting the stone from stealing it. He was protecting it from Quirrell, not as a Gryffindor, not as Slytherin, as himself. He found Ron and Hermione and told them everything. Ron didn't smile, didn't joke, he just nodded once. Let's stop him. They went down together that night, facing traps meant to kill. Devil's snare, flying keys, a deadly chessboard. Ron sacrificed himself without hesitation. Harry didn't hesitate either in the final chamber. Quirrell waited. His voice was cold, desperate. The truth spilled out. Voldemort lived, and he wanted Harry, but the stone didn't appear for Quirrell. It appeared for Harry. And when Voldemort screamed, when Quirrell fell, Harry knew something important. Cunning could protect you. Ambition could drive you. But love that was power no house could teach. When Harry woke in the hospital wing, Dumbledore smiled down at him. "You did very well, my boy," Harry asked quietly. "Was I sorted wrong?" Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps Hogwarts simply needed to learn that Slytherin does not decide destiny." Far away, in the greenlit depths of the castle, whispers had already begun. Harry Potter had changed the rules. Harry returned to Slytherin with a strange feeling sitting heavy in his chest. He wasn't a hero there. No cheering welcomed him back. No one clapped him on the back or told stories about what he had done. Instead, people watched him more closely than before. Whispers followed him through the corridors, quieter but sharper, like knives dragged across stone. Draco's attitude changed first. He didn't insult Harry. That would have been easier. Instead, he smiled too much and spoke too politely. "So," Draco said one evening, leaning against a pillar near the common room entrance, "you and your little adventure saved the school. Brave, very Gryffindor of you." "I did what needed to be done." Draco's smile twitched. "That's the problem, Potter. You never think about what it costs." Harry knew what Draco meant. Slytherin valued loyalty to its own secrets. Power kept close. Harry had shared information with outsiders. Worse, he had trusted them. From that moment on, Harry understood something important. In Slytherin, respect was fragile. One wrong move, and you became a threat instead of an ally. Snape treated him differently too. Not kinder, not harsher, just careful. In class, Snape no longer humiliated him. He asked questions that forced Harry to think, to plan steps ahead. When Harry answered correctly, Snape didn't praise him, but he didn't hide his approval either. "You survived," Snape said quietly, after one lesson when the dungeon had emptied. Many do not. Harry didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning. As months passed, Harry grew sharper. He learned how to speak without revealing too much, how to listen without agreeing, how to smile without meaning it. Slytherin was teaching him control, even when it hurt. But some nights, he still dreamed of fire and cold laughter. The scar never stopped burning completely. Second year arrived, and with it came whispers of fear. Students were being attacked. Messages written in blood appeared on the walls. The words chilled the castle. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Slytherin students reacted differently from the rest. Some looked afraid. Others looked excited. A few looked proud, like history was finally proving them right. Draco didn't hide it. "The heir of Slytherin is back," he said openly. "Finally, this school will be cleaned of filth." Harry felt sick. He knew what people were thinking. He could feel it in their looks, in the way conversations stopped when he entered a room, a Parselmouth, a Slytherin, famous, different. Suspicion followed him everywhere. When Harry spoke to a snake during dueling club, the room turned on him instantly. Fear twisted into anger. People backed away from him like he was dangerous. Hermione was petrified days later. Ron stood by Harry, but even he looked unsure sometimes. You wouldn't? Ron started one night, then stopped. Harry didn't get angry. That scared him more than anything. He was used to doubt now. Used to being questioned, Slytherin House didn't defend him. They watched. Waiting to see which way he would fall, Harry discovered the diary by accident, hidden among old things in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. It listened. It answered. It understood his frustration. Tom Riddle spoke kindly. He spoke of history, of injustice, of being misunderstood. You're not like them, the diary seemed to say. You're special. Harry almost believed it. Almost, but Slytherin had taught him one thing. Above all, else never trust something that gains power by feeding on your weakness. When he learned Ginny was being controlled, something inside him snapped. This wasn't ambition. This wasn't survival. This was cruelty. He went into the chamber alone. The basilisk's eyes burned with death. The air tasted like fear. Tom Riddle stood tall and calm, smiling like he already owned Harry's future. You could have been great, Tom said softly. You still could be. Harry didn't answer with words. He fought. The sword burned his hand. Pain ripped through him. Venom tore into his arm. But he didn't stop. When the diary burned, when the chamber fell silent, Harry knew the truth. He wasn't Gryffindor brave. He wasn't Slytherin cruel. He was something in between. And that terrified the world more than either. Back in the hospital wing, Dumbledore watched him carefully. You show qualities Salazar himself would admire, Dumbledore said. Harry looked away. I don't want his legacy, good Dumbledore replied. That is why you won't repeat it. Slytherin House changed after that. Slowly, uncomfortably, some students feared Harry. Others respected him. A few followed him quietly, drawn not to his name, but to his strength and deep beneath the school. Something old and dark had been destroyed, but not forgotten by the time third year began. Harry had stopped trying to fit into any single shape. He no longer cared if people thought he was dangerous or strange. Fear, he had learned, was just another kind of respect at Hogwarts. And in Slytherin, it carried weight. The train ride back felt different. Students whispered less openly now. Some nodded at him. Others avoided his eyes. Draco Malfoy didn't sit with him anymore. Instead, he watched from a distance, his confidence cracked but not broken. Draco had learned something important. Harry Potter was not someone who could be controlled. Classes became harder. Professors expected more from him, especially Snape. In private, Snape pushed Harry in ways no one else did. Advanced potions, silent corrections, long stares that felt like tests. You think before you act now, Snape said once. That is progress. Harry didn't reply. Praise from Snape felt dangerous. Like standing too close to a blade, defense against the dark arts changed with Professor Lupin. He was kind, calm, and surprisingly fair to Harry, despite his house. When the boggart lesson came, Harry froze. The Dementor rose from the wardrobe, cloaked in darkness, sucking warmth from the room. But something was different this time. Instead of collapsing, Harry stood his ground. He didn't fully cast the Patronus, but he didn't run either. Lupin noticed. His eyes lingered on Harry with quiet concern. Later, Lupin spoke to him alone. Fear doesn't control you the way it used to. Slytherin teaches control, Harry said simply. Lupin nodded slowly. Just make sure it doesn't teach you to bury too much. The truth of Sirius Black shook the school. An escaped prisoner. A murderer. The castle locked down tighter than ever. But Harry felt something strange whenever Sirius's name came up. Not fear, but confusion. His scar didn't react. His instincts didn't scream danger. Slytherin students took a darker interest. If Black kills Potter, history will be satisfied, someone muttered once. Harry heard. He always heard when the truth finally came out about Peter Pettigrew. About betrayal, about his parents. Harry felt something inside him break and harden at the same time. Rage, yes, but also clarity. He didn't hunt Sirius down in blind anger. He listened. That choice saved lives. Letting Pettigrew escape haunted Harry more than anything else he'd done. Gryffindor would have chased him without thinking. Slytherin understood consequences, and Harry hated that he understood both. Fourth year arrived like a storm. The Triwizard Tournament was announced, and the castle buzzed with excitement and jealousy. Harry wanted nothing to do with it. He had learned to avoid spotlights. They burned. Then his name came out of the Goblet of Fire. The Great Hall exploded. Anger, shock, accusations. A Slytherin champion. This time, even Slytherin House wasn't united. Some were proud, others furious. "You didn't tell us," Draco hissed. "You planned this alone." Harry looked at him coldly. "I didn't plan anything." No one believed him. The tasks pushed Harry to his limits, but he didn't rely on courage alone anymore. He planned, he researched. He made quiet deals. He listened to rumors and half-truths and turned them into weapons. Other champions underestimated him. That was their mistake. The graveyard changed everything. When Voldemort returned, when blood was spilled and darkness rose again, Harry didn't scream. He didn't beg. He survived again back at Hogwarts. Fear spread fast. The Ministry denied everything. Slytherin students grew restless. Some admired Voldemort openly. Others stayed silent. Harry stayed watchful. Dumbledore began trusting him with things he didn't trust others with, not because Harry was pure, but because he understood the enemy's way of thinking. "You see the cracks," Dumbledore said once. "You always have." Harry didn't feel special. He felt tired. Fifth year came with lies, punishment, and Umbridge's sweet cruelty. Slytherin students aligned with her easily. Rules meant power. Control meant safety. Harry fought her differently, not with shouting, with patience, with planning, with rebellion that couldn't be traced. Back to him, by the time the war truly began, the wizarding world had realized something too late. Harry Potter wasn't just a symbol of hope. He was a strategist, shaped by shadows, and he was ready. The war didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, like poison in clear water. By sixth year, Hogwarts no longer felt like a school. It felt like a fortress pretending to be one. Teachers whispered behind closed doors. Students picked sides without saying so out loud. And Slytherin House, once proud and sharp, became divided down the middle. Harry felt it every day. Some Slytherins watched him with something close to respect. Others looked at him with quiet hatred, as if he were a betrayal walking among them. The idea of a Slytherin who fought against Voldemort confused people. They preferred simple stories. Heroes in red. Villains in green. Harry existed in the gray, and the gray made people uncomfortable. Snape's lessons became almost private. He taught Harry acclimacy, not with anger this time, but with brutal honesty. "Your mind is already trained to survive," Snape said. "Now, learn to defend it." The memories were painful. Cupboards, hunger, graves, screams in the graveyard. Harry learned to lock them away without losing himself. That balance was hard. Some nights, he sat by the lake and wondered how much of himself he had already buried. Dumbledore trusted him more openly now, not with speeches, but with silence, with looks that said, "You see it too." When Harry learned the truth about the Horcruxes, he didn't panic. He asked questions. Sharp ones. How many? How do we destroy them? What happens if we fail? Dumbledore didn't smile. He answered honestly. Draco Malfoy started to fall apart. Harry noticed before anyone else. The shaking hands, the haunted eyes, the weight Draco carried without telling anyone. Once Harry found him alone in a corridor, pale and furious at himself. "You don't understand," Draco snapped. "You get to choose." Harry's voice was quiet. "So do you?" Draco laughed bitterly. "Not in my family." That was the night Harry realized how Voldemort truly recruited his followers, not with belief, but with fear. The night Dumbledore died broke the last illusion of safety. Harry didn't cry in public. Slytherin had trained him better than that. But inside, something went cold. The man who had believed in his choices was gone. The war was no longer theoretical. When the Death Eaters entered the castle, some Slytherin students helped them. Others hid. A few stood frozen, trapped between family and conscience. Harry fought in silence, slipping through the chaos, protecting where he could, striking where it mattered. He saw Snape flee, and the pain of that betrayal cut deep. Even knowing there was more beneath it, the hunt for Horcruxes was nothing like the stories would later claim. It wasn't brave or glorious. It was exhausting, cold, and lonely. Harry led differently now. He didn't give speeches. He made plans. He weighed risks. Ron struggled with that. "You're not telling us everything," he said once. Harry met his eyes. "If I tell you everything, you won't follow me." Ron hated that, but he stayed. Hermione understood. She always had. Each Horcrux destroyed felt like tearing away a piece of something rotten and old. But it also tore at Harry. He felt Voldemort more clearly now. Their connection deepened. Sometimes Harry knew things he wished he didn't. By the time they returned to Hogwarts, the lines were clear. Slytherin House was evacuated. Some students left with relief, others with anger. Harry stood in the Great Hall and watched them go, feeling no pride and no shame, just resolve. The battle was chaos. Harry didn't charge. He moved, through corridors, through secrets, through people who thought they knew him. When Voldemort finally faced him, there was no speech, no dramatic challenge. "You fear death," Harry said calmly. "That's why you've already lost." The Elder Wand turned. The spell backfired. Silence fell. After the war, the world wanted a story that made sense. They wanted Harry Potter, the Gryffindor hero. They didn't get that. They got a survivor shaped by Slytherin shadows, who proved that ambition could serve justice, and cunning could protect the innocent. Hogwarts would never sort the same way again, because one boy in green had rewritten what it meant to choose. The wizarding world tried to heal by pretending. Things were simple again. It held trials, built statues, wrote books with clean lines and clear villains. People wanted comfort more than truth. They wanted to believe the war had been won by bravery alone, not by hard choices made in silence. Harry Potter refused to give them that lie. He didn't return to Hogwarts right away. When he did, it wasn't as a student. He walked the grounds as someone older than his years, carrying memories that didn't fit neatly into classrooms. The castle felt familiar but distant, like a childhood home you no longer belonged to. The pride remained, but it had softened. Ambition was no longer spoken of as domination, but as purpose. Students debated ethics now, not just bloodlines. Some of that change was forced. Most of it, WASN single quotes, T.O. Harry never claimed credit. He didn't need to. Draco Malfoy stood trial and walked free, shaken and thinner, but alive. Months later, he found Harry by the lake. "I hated you," Draco said flatly. "I know," Harry replied. "You made it harder," Draco continued. "If you had been what they said you were, I wouldn't have had to think." Harry skipped a stone across the water. Thinking is the worst part. Draco nodded once. That was the closest thing to forgiveness either of them needed. Snape's portrait watched Harry silently for a long time before finally speaking. "You wasted potential," Snape said. Harry raised an eyebrow. "And you wasted your life hiding." Snape's mouth thinned, then curved slightly. "Perhaps," he admitted. Harry became an Auror, but not the kind the Ministry liked to show off. He worked in the dark corners, untangling old Death Eater networks, breaking systems instead of people. He pushed for reforms quietly, the way Slytherin had taught him, one rule at a time, one weakness at a time. He refused awards, refused to be a symbol. What he did accept was responsibility. Years later, Harry stood in the Great Hall again, watching new students wait nervously for the sorting hat. The whispers were different now. No one spoke as if a house defined fate. The hat slipped over a young boy's eyes and hesitated. Harry smiled faintly. He recognized that pause. When the hat called out Slytherin, there was no gasp, just applause. Harry turned and walked away, content to remain in the background, where real change always began, because the truth was simple. Even if the world resisted it, Harry Potter wasn't great because he defied Slytherin. He was great because he proved Slytherin could be better, and in doing so, he changed magic itself, quietly, carefully, and forever.